Gait patterns define the sequence of moving ambulatory assistive devices and lower extremities so that patients can ambulate. In order for a patient using a walker to ambulate using a 3-point gait pattern, the patient stands centered within the walker. The physical therapist must be positioned in stride, behind and to one side of the patient. The therapist grasps the gait belt and the patient's shoulder. The walker is lifted and advanced forward. All 4 legs of the walker must be lifted from or lowered to the floor simultaneously. As the patient moves the walker, the therapist advances his right or outside foot. The patient then advances the involved lower extremity, moving into the strength and stability of the walker. Then he bears weight through his upper extremities as he advances his uninvolved lower extremity. He may step to or slightly beyond his other foot, but not beyond the front crossbar of the walker. Equal step lengths should be encouraged. The therapist advances his left or inside foot to move with the patient. For patients who use the 3-point gait pattern, the therapist must be positioned in stride, behind and to one side of the patient. The therapist then grasps the gait belt and the patient's shoulder. Again, the patient begins by standing centered in the walker. The involved lower extremity is not rested on the floor. It may be held with the knee in extension, putting the foot in front of the patient, or it may be held with knee flexion, putting the foot behind the patient. The uninvolved lower extremity and both upper extremities provide support. The walker is lifted and moved forward. As the patient moves the walker, the therapist advances his outside foot. Bearing weight through his upper extremities, the patient steps into the walker with the uninvolved extremity. The therapist advances his left or inside foot to move with the patient. The total sequence is repeated for continued progression. Patients who must ambulate using a swing-to gait pattern also stand centered in the walker. The therapist is positioned in stride, behind and to one side of the patient, grasping the gait belt and shoulder of the patient. The walker is moved forward and the therapist advances his right or outside foot. The patient lifts his body by bearing weight through his upper extremities and depressing his shoulders while pushing down on the hand grips of the walker. The patient can then let his body swing forward into the walker. The therapist moves his left or inside foot as the patient swings forward. The patient lowers himself at the end of the swing and bears weight on his lower extremities.